all the people who are taking stock sounds from FL Studio, Rollin presets from the 90s, and uncleared old school samples from the 70s, and throwing them all together in a zip file and putting them online and charging a fee for them, they're not too happy with me. But really, we shouldn't care about them or the people who defend them. And I want to offer some real value here. So let's talk sound design. Let's talk creating actual original drum sounds from scratch, from thin air, that you can either use in your beats to help develop your own custom sound as a producer, or that you can design for a legal and original sounding drum kit that you can feel good about selling to the producer community. Or both, I guess. I use my drum kits a lot. Let's be honest, you're not gonna find these videos anywhere else. Why? Because I make them. So it would really help me out if you subscribe. If you've already subscribed, what also really helps is if you like the video and leave a comment. It's hard in the era of clickbait videos on YouTube and negativity in the producer community, and I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. So before I start here, I've been working on this drum kit for the past 4 years. I've been talking about it. It's the Damn That Hurt Volume 3 kit. It's full of sounds. I mean, this kit itself has over 400 sounds. And with all the bonuses, it's well over 500, I'm pretty sure. In addition to the one-shots, like all these snares, whole lot of snares, lots of kicks as well. There are also drum and percussion loops, those hi-hat loops that add a real organic feel, a live feel to your beats. Drum loops, melodic loops, and one-shots. These are sample chops, but these are original samples that me and Dreamlife created. And as part of the kit, I'm just giving you the first 2 drum kits I ever released, Damn That Hurt, Volume 1 and 2, as part of the kit, plus a whole bunch of bonus loops. So the link to get that is below. I appreciate your support. Let's get into sound design. So I already spent some time breaking down some of these fraudulent drum kits, whatever you want to call them. The drum kits that are just full of stolen sounds that aren't even reworked or oftentimes renamed. In the last video, I created a drum kit that I didn't think sounded very good, but I did it from scratch in like 20 seconds. So I want to talk a little bit more about sound design at a more complex level. So synthesis is not something I talked about before. I want to talk about synthesizing drum sounds as well as recording samples that are original. So I actually recorded some more samples here on my mic of me tapping the windscreen. I have an eyeball windscreen and making other sounds. This is me tapping on the windscreen. I don't know what that is. I think that's me punching myself. So I actually don't like any of these sounds. I kind of like this one. And I'm gonna remove this tail at the end here. Kind of add a volume curve to the end to reduce the decay. Yeah, so I have this sound here. I want to make it sound better, make it really sound like an actual kit. So what I'm gonna do is, and this is something that probably a lot of FL users do, I'm gonna add some soft clipper to it. And I actually have an effects chain here. And what I'm using is a transient plugin that boosts the EQ, and this one is adding more mid-range punch. I'm also using a soft clipper, and then I'm also using a limiter on top of it. So this is what it sounds like with the effects. So this is very different now. This is actually sounds a lot better actually. This sounds like a kick I might actually use. That was simple. I think I got lucky here. Let's talk about ways to, because maybe you don't have a mic. So there are ways for you to create drum sounds from scratch that don't require a microphone, that don't require you punching yourself in the chest. I think a lot of people missed the point of my last couple videos talking about why reselling unoriginal stolen sounds from other kits could be a problem. So there's this company called Rollin, right? They've been around for a long freaking time. They actually created the 808. The 808 refers to a very specific set of sounds because the 808 was a drum machine that Rollin created and owned the rights to, of course. They're not a small company. They're still active today. You can download, they have a VST service out there called Rollin Cloud. It's really good. You probably don't want trouble with a company like Rollin. They put out a sound module, which is for people who weren't producing in the 90s or the early 2000s, there were these things called rack modules that were full of sounds that basically were like physical VSTs. Rollin created many of them. This is one of them, called the sound expansion. I guarantee you, you're gonna recognize this. I've seen it repackaged as the Zay-Ah. I'm assuming because Zaytoven has used it, he probably has the original sound module in his studio. Everyone knows it from that Nelly song. Will you get in trouble for using that sound because Rollin owns it? No, absolutely not. That sound is made by Rollin for producers to use in new compositions. However, what they don't want you doing is reselling that sound. The same way I will license a beat to an artist and allow them to sell that song on Apple Music, but won't let them resell the beat as though they created it. That's the same thing that these companies that create sounds write their end user license agreements. So again, let me just remind you, this is not a game to be playing where you're taking sounds from some of these big companies and then reselling them and putting your name on them. So let's kick off this whole sound design thing with a guy whose name I brought up a couple times, Decap. A lot of people say there are no original drum kits anymore. Everyone's using recycled sounds. Yeah, right. Decap's one of the people who definitely are not doing that, and he's actually released some sound design videos. All links to these videos are going to be in the description. I'm just going to show you a clip from this one. This is him explaining how to create 808 sub bass from scratch using FL Studio 20.
So this is a sine wave, just a very basic sine wave. If I turn this up, you can see it starts, you get a square wave here and a triangle here. So see what it does.
So he's showing you how to create sub bass, and sub bass is based on this waveform, which is a sine wave. And pretty much every synth that you download, whether it's native to your DAW, whether it's something like Massive or Vanguard or what else, Serum, you're gonna have that sine wave pattern. Let's talk about creating kicks. Now you're gonna see that the sine wave pattern comes up a lot because that's actually what kick sounds are based on. So this is from Zen World. This is another video that's available on YouTube that I think some of these people who are creating these stolen drum kits should watch.
An analog BD sine and start from there. Here, let's see, let's get it to where we wanted, maybe -1, and then we're gonna add sort of like this nice click to it. Let's do that. Alt Shift click.
So it's a long video. I have Serum now because it comes with Acid 10, and I created a really basic kick here. When I start going into the higher registers, it starts sounding more like a tom. If you tweaked it some more, you could create some original toms out of, I think, this very same sine wave. So let's figure out what else there is. Here's a guy whose videos you're probably familiar with, or you should be, Simon Servita. So in this video, in this section, I'm going to show you he's creating snares from scratch. And I believe he's also using Serum, and he's also using, I think, a sine wave with added noise.
Now let's go over my favorite thing to make, which are snares. Now a snare is a combination of a sine wave and white noise. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move the LFO, we're gonna shape it to a snare, and we're gonna move that onto the level parameter. We're gonna do the exact same thing for the white noise. Let's choose some white noise as well. That sounds fine.
So that's already sounding like a snare. So let's add some noise here. Sounding like a snare already. Actually, when I take away the sine wave, it sounds like a hi-hat, doesn't it? Yep. Listen to these are hi-hats. If I change the attack, now it sounds like a shaker. Map the pitch to the keyboard as well. You can make some really interesting sounds just by experimenting with a couple clicks. I'm the last person that is qualified to teach you how to synthesize sounds and program your synths. That's not me. I don't know anything about that stuff. I'm not going to lie and act like I do. But I'll tell you that it's fun. And if you want to get into sound design, there are plenty of resources out there that show you how to do this at a higher level than I can. In addition to creating stuff out of synthesis, there are actual VSTs out there specifically for designing drum sounds. So like, for example, there's Kick 2 from Sonic Academy. Reed Steffen's channel shows you how to use that.
And let's bring down the beginning of this. Feels kind of like high up there. As you could hear, as you move these little pivot points around, you can make a pretty big change in the way the sub sounds.
And for those of you who are a little more classic and nerdy, and actually someone commented in my last video that they had the Novation Bass Station 2 and they were performing a lot of sound design with that, and some people prefer this. The cool thing about analog gear like this is that you create it, you know, in the outboard gear, and then you record it into your computer, and recording something from outboard analog into your computer often adds a cool texture. So just the process of recording something adds a unique feel to it. So this is more sub bass creation using sine waves, but you don't need VSTs to do it if you prefer analog gear. I mean, this is how synthesis started. It didn't start with VSTs. And then if you're really nerdy and you really want to get into, it's a little more complicated, a little more expensive, because you have to get all these mics and a lot of space to set up an entire physical drum kit. Then you can talk about recording drums. Live drums. Maybe you can rent studio space and hire a drummer and record the drum sounds yourself and then process them in your DAW. I think a lot of people do that, and that's a cool way to get some unique and powerful sounds.
What we're doing is we're close micing each drum. So we're using a kick, snare, rack tom, and floor tom mic. They're all dynamic microphones, and a spaced pair of overheads, which are small diaphragm condensers. In the mix of this one, we're probably going to be favoring the close mics over the overheads to get that really tight, punchy, hit you in the face type of sound.
For our smooth 70s drum kit sound, we added towels to the heads to dampen them. And
so these people just know way too much. This is outside of my pay grade, but it's a good video to watch if you're prepared for all that. I'm not prepared for all that right now. But again, here are two kick drums that I created relatively easily. And this is something that you can do as well. It's fun to learn something new, even if all you're doing is adding these sounds to your own beats and not actually, you know, releasing a kit for sale. It makes your contribution to the producer community more meaningful when you release a kit that is completely original, and it makes it a lot more moral. I don't know, people don't want to hear me moralizing about the producer community, but I think we can be better and do better. So all the links to those really helpful videos on sound design are in the description. I definitely encourage you to check out people like Decap, people like Simon, who really get heavy into sound design. They're great teachers and role models in that space. I know Curtis King is doing the same a lot with sound design, with field recording. And field record, I didn't even talk about field recording because it's not something that I do, but actually in my new kit there are some field recorded sounds, but they were kind of unintentional because I was shooting video. But anyway, my new drum kit is out. The helpful videos, the links to all that stuff, they are below. Appreciate you watching. Much success to you. Have fun, because that's what it's about. Do some experimenting. Enjoy the process. Makes the journey a whole lot better. Peace.